Michigan 2000 deep strike drone. In early August, Ukrainian forces struck the cargo ship Nadezhda near Novorossiysk with a drone that resembled Iran's Shahid rather than Ukraine's familiar Ludiai or FP-1 long-range attack drone, according to Ukrainian defense outlet Obronka, whose journalists visited the weapon's production facility. The drone is called Michigan 2000. It began as a Chinese civilian airframe before Ukrainian engineers turned it into a deep strike weapon used exclusively by the Security Service of Ukraine's Alfa Special Operations Center. Michigan 2000 can fly up to 2,000 kilometers and carry as much as 60 kilograms of explosives, and the list of targets it has hit grows weekly, Obronka reported. Ukraine had relied on Chinese-sourced drones for deep strikes since 2022, before its own long-range platforms were ready. Military teams converted civilian MICH 5 Pro aircraft, fitted them with explosives, and launched them at Russian rear area targets. Each cost about $15,000, carried 25 kilograms of explosives, and flew up to 500 kilometers. The attacks drew media attention, and in summer 2023, China restricted direct export of civilian drones. That December, a team of Ukrainian developers traveled to China to buy ready-made airframes directly from manufacturers and found a factory building dozens of ZTK-150 drones closely resembling the Shahid, distinguished mainly by front canards. We were at a very large production facility and saw all the processes. Then we negotiated for several days with Chinese intermediaries until they came up with the idea to sell us the technology so we could make everything ourselves. That's when they planted the idea that we could really build drones in Ukraine instead of buying and shipping them, a member of the team told Obronka. Ukrainian military leadership welcomed the proposal, but when the team returned ready to buy the technology, the factory's management refused. The intermediaries who had brokered the talks offered a workaround instead, assembling drones at a site outside China's export restrictions, plus training Ukrainian pilots on the aircraft. We went there to train pilots to fly the Chinese drones. And while training, we photographed everything there was, from the production process to the layout of the shelves and cabinets, the team told Obronka. The team returned with trained pilots and 8 Chinese-built drones. Testing began in summer 2024. The first launch covered about 1 kilometer before crashing on a weight balance error. The second flew for roughly an hour before vibration sheared off its propeller. A third failed after the drone lost signal under electronic warfare, showing the airframe could not fly in contested electromagnetic environments. When we started making our own fuselages, we made a lot of mistakes, aerodynamic, structural, that caused us constant problems. For about a month and a half to 2 months, we were crashing planes at the range until our customer told us, "You've worn out your welcome. It's time for combat." We said we hadn't started flying properly yet. But Alfa wasn't interested in that. They needed results, the company's owner told Obronka. The first combat sortie flew in October 2024. Of 3 Michigan drones launched, 1 was shot down and 2 missed their targets by about 10 meters. Alfa judged the results sufficient and approved the drone for production. The airframe is a flying wing, so the fuselage itself serves as the wing. Finished bodies are weighed as a final check, one of dozens of inspection steps the company uses to verify manufacturing precision. Repeatability of the technology matters to me. The lighter the airframe, the more fuel it can carry and the fewer problems can occur in flight. Any millimeter, or a misplaced comma in the code, can cause an error, the owner said. The catalog now includes 8 versions for deep strike or middle strike missions, with a range up to 2,000 kilometers and a warhead between 25 kilograms and 60 kilograms. Operators can choose analog, digital, or Starlink communications, plus different warheads and guidance options. The Chinese original cost about $50,000. The Ukrainian version starts at $48,000, with final pricing depending on add-ons such as terminal guidance and CRPA antenna channels for jam-resistant navigation. Over 2 years, the company built a network of dozens of subcontractors producing engines, warheads, fuselages, ignition boards, and rocket boosters with their own fuel. CRPA antennas, made by only a handful of manufacturers, remain imported at $20,000 to $25,000 depending on module count. A Michigan 2000 without one reaches about 85% localization by cost. With the antenna installed, that drops to 55%. We had an unpleasant incident where third-party boosters burned about $1 million worth of our equipment. After that, we were banned from launching on those boosters. We went to the range, launched the first aircraft, and the booster misfired, producing more impulse than it should have. Chemists and engineers worked all night reworking the rockets right there at the range. The next day, 3 drones flew. After that, we started scaling up and switching to our own boosters, the owner told Obranka. The company produces about 6,000 drones a year, a fraction of the 100,000 annual drones that Ukrainian manufacturer Firepoint has said it aims to build. Unlike Firepoint's FP1, fielded across multiple units, Michigan 2000 has a single customer. We know our drones 1T just fly off somewhere into the swamps. They fly to a specific target because Alfa is about analytics and results, the company told Obranka. Obranka identified at least 8 videos showing Michigan 2000 in flight or striking targets. The company's head said Alfa has launched thousands of the drones and hit hundreds of targets in occupied Ukrainian territory and inside Russia, including strikes on Moscow, the destruction of a Tu-95 MS strategic bomber at the Engels airfield, a Wildberries logistics hub in Ryazan region, an electronic warfare system near Vladimir Putin's residence in Galenzik, and an attack on a Russian Baltic Fleet naval base. Satellite imagery has separately confirmed the Tu-95 MS's rear section was destroyed beyond repair, and Ukrainian outlet Militarny reported an earlier Michigan 2000 strike on an optical mechanical plant in Azov, Russia, on July 4. The largest single strike hit the port of Ust-Luga, where more than 20 Michigan drones reached their targets. During one attack with guided Michigan drones, so many reached the target area that there weren't enough targets left for them. They ended up chasing a Panzer air defense system down the road after it had fired off all its ammunition, the company's head said, laughing. The company is developing Michigan, a middle strike variant without front canards, carrying a 70 kilograms warhead with terminal guidance and a range up to 600 kilometers, priced at roughly $40,000. It plans to raise annual output to 10,000 drones and is hiring workers, adding production sites and reinvesting about $1 million a month in research and development. With Alfa as its only customer, the company says financing further expansion is difficult, and it is exploring joint production with Baltic states under the Build with Ukraine program to draw on European funding. Honestly, I don't want to guess anymore what happens after 10,000. I just want the war to end. But if we need to keep working, we'll keep working, the company's head said.